There are discoveries that answered questions humanity should never have asked. Breakthroughs that opened doors that should have stayed closed. Scientific achievements that gave us knowledge we can't unknow and technologies we can't uninvent. And the scientists who made these discoveries spent the rest of their lives wishing they hadn't. In 1900, Otto Hahn discovered nuclear fission in a Berlin laboratory. He split a uranium atom and released enormous energy. The discovery won him a Nobel Prize and changed physics forever. By 1945, two cities were vaporized by atomic bombs. 200,000 people died instantly. Hahn suffered a nervous breakdown when he learned what his discovery had enabled. He spent the rest of his life campaigning against nuclear weapons. But the knowledge couldn't be erased. The atom was split. The genie was out. In 1953, James Watson and Francis Crick discovered the structure of DNA. They revealed how genetic information is stored and transmitted. The discovery revolutionized biology and medicine. By 2003, the human genome was fully mapped. CRISPR gene editing was invented. By 2018, a Chinese scientist edited human embryos to create designer babies. The line between healing disease and engineering humans has disappeared. Watson publicly regretted how his discovery was being used. But the code was cracked. The door was open. In 1928, Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin by accident when mold contaminated his bacterial cultures. The first antibiotic saved millions of lives from infections that had been death sentences for all of human history. By 1945, penicillin was mass-produced and changed medicine forever. Antibiotic-resistant bacteria kill 1.3 million people per year. Superbugs, immune to every antibiotic, are spreading. The miracle drug is failing, and bacteria are evolving faster than we can develop new antibiotics. Fleming warned about resistance in his 1945 Nobel Prize speech. No one listened. Now we're facing a post-antibiotic future where routine infections could kill again. But here's what should terrify everyone who believes in scientific progress. These weren't accidents. These weren't mistakes. These were brilliant discoveries made by genius scientists who followed the evidence and pushed the boundaries of human knowledge. They did everything right scientifically, and they created nightmares that will haunt humanity forever. This is the list of discoveries that science wishes it never made. Why brilliant breakthroughs became catastrophic curses, and why some knowledge is too dangerous for humanity to possess. The discovery that ended humanity's innocence, nuclear fission before 1938, humanity couldn't destroy itself. But human civilization would survive. Then Otto Hahn split the atom. And for the first time in history, humans possessed the power to end all human life on Earth. The discovery of nuclear fission didn't just change physics, it created an existential threat that will exist forever. The science was elegant and beautiful. Fire a neutron at a uranium-235 nucleus. The nucleus splits into lighter elements. Far more than any chemical reaction. Einstein's equation E equal mc² explained why converting even tiny amounts of mass into energy releases incredible power. It was pure physics, perfect mathematics, revolutionary science, and it was immediately weaponized. Within 6 years of Hahn's discovery, the Manhattan Project had built atomic bombs. $2 billion spent, 130,000 people working in secret. The world's greatest physicists, Oppenheimer, Fermi, Teller, Feynman, racing to build a weapon before Nazi Germany could. July 16, 1945, Trinity test. The first atomic bomb detonated in the New Mexico desert. Oppenheimer watched the fireball and thought of a line from Hindu scripture, "The destroyer of worlds." The bomb worked. The scientists cheered. Then they realized what they'd created. August 6, 1945, Hiroshima. A single bomb called Little Boy vaporized the city center. 80,000 people died instantly. Bodies were turned to shadow on walls by the thermal flash. 3 days later, Nagasaki, another 70,000 dead. Japan surrendered. World War II ended. But here's what the discovery actually meant. Humanity could now destroy itself. 2 bombs ended a war. 2,000 bombs could end civilization. By 1960, the US and Soviet Union had built 40,000 nuclear warheads, enough to destroy every city on Earth multiple times over. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction meant everyone lived under the constant threat of nuclear annihilation. Otto Hahn never recovered. When he learned that atomic bombs had destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki using his discovery, he attempted suicide. He spent the rest of his life advocating against nuclear weapons. He publicly regretted his discovery and wished he could undo it. But he couldn't. The knowledge existed. The technology was real. And dozens of countries now possess nuclear weapons. Today, 9 countries have 12,500 nuclear warheads. Russia has 5,977. The US has 5,428. Enough to end human civilization in an afternoon. The weapons sit in silos, on submarines, on bombers, ready to launch within minutes. We live under a nuclear sword of Damocles that will hang over humanity forever because one scientist split an atom in 1938. This is the discovery science wishes it never made. Not because it was bad science, the physics was brilliant, but because it gave humanity the power to commit suicide. And we can never undiscover nuclear fission. The knowledge is permanent. The threat is eternal. The discovery that weaponized life itself, genetic engineering. Evolution shaped life through random mutation and natural selection. Watson and Crick discovered the structure of DNA, and suddenly humans could read the code of life. By 2012, CRISPR gene editing let us rewrite that code. We can now edit genes with the precision of find and replace in a text document. We've made ourselves the authors of evolution. Scientists noticed that bacteria have an immune system that remembers past viral infections using repeated DNA sequences, clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. CRISPR. Bacteria use it to cut viral DNA. Scientists realized they could use the same system to cut and edit any DNA sequence in any organism. The implications were immediately clear. Edit genes to cure genetic diseases. Eliminate hereditary conditions, fix mutations that cause suffering. The medical applications seemed miraculous. Sickle cell anemia, Huntington's disease, cystic fibrosis, all could potentially be cured by editing the faulty genes. But the technology doesn't distinguish between therapy and enhancement. If you can edit genes to cure disease, you can edit genes to enhance abilities, intelligence, athletic performance. Appearance. November 2018, He Jiankui shocked the world. The Chinese scientist announced he'd used CRISPR to edit human embryos, creating twin girls with modified CCR5 genes to make them resistant to HIV. The first genetically modified humans, the first designer babies. The scientific community was horrified. He Jiankui was imprisoned for 3 years. They're alive. They're growing up with edited genomes that will be passed to their children. And here's what makes this discovery catastrophic. A decent biology lab can do CRISPR editing for a few $1,000s. The knowledge is published. The techniques are online. You can't uninvent it. You can't regulate it effectively when any lab in any country can use it. We're already seeing the nightmare scenarios. Labs editing embryos to select for desired traits. Companies offering genetic enhancement packages for wealthy parents. Black markets for unregulated gene therapy. The creation of genetic underclasses. People who can't afford enhancements competing against people whose parents bought them superior genes. But it gets worse. CRISPR can edit any organism, not just humans. Co-discoverer of DNA structure warned about this in the 1960s. He said genetic engineering could create biological weapons and designer humans. He said society wasn't ready for the power to rewrite life. He was right. By the time he died in 2004, The technology he feared was already being developed. The other DNA co-discoverer publicly stated in 2000 that he regretted how genetic technology was being used. He worried about eugenics, designer babies, and genetic discrimination. He warned that society would use genetic knowledge to create inequality rather than eliminate it. Then he made racist comments about genetics and intelligence in 2007, proved his own point about how genetics would be weaponized for discrimination, and was ostracized by the scientific community. The discovery that revealed the code of life has become the discovery that lets us rewrite life. And we're using that power before we understand the consequences. Every edited gene could have unintended effects. Every enhancement could create unforeseen problems. Every designer baby is a genetic experiment with a human subject who never consented. This is the discovery science wishes it never made. Because knowing how DNA works was supposed to cure disease. Instead, it's creating a future where humans are products to be designed, where evolution is controlled by corporations and governments, and where the definition of human becomes negotiable. The discovery that made modern life possible and might end it. The Haber-Bosch process in 1909. Fritz Haber discovered how to synthesize ammonia from nitrogen and hydrogen. It sounds boring. It's not. This one discovery feeds 4 billion people, enabled 2 world wars, and might be destroying the planet. It's the most important discovery you've never heard of, and its inventor died in exile, hated by the country he tried to save. Plants need nitrogen to grow. Nitrogen is 78% of the atmosphere. But plants can't use atmospheric nitrogen. They need it in the form of ammonia or nitrate. Before 1909, the only way to get nitrogen fertilizer was from natural deposits of bird guano or Chilean saltpeter. The world was running out. Scientists predicted mass starvation by 1950 because there wouldn't be enough fertilizer to grow food. Haber's process fixed nitrogen from the air. Take nitrogen from the atmosphere, combine it with hydrogen under high pressure and temperature with an iron catalyst, and you get ammonia. Ammonia can be turned into fertilizer. Suddenly, unlimited nitrogen fertilizer was possible. Agriculture was revolutionized. Crop yields exploded. The predicted famine never happened. Today, the Haber-Bosch process produces 450 million tons of ammonia per year. Half the nitrogen in your body came from this process. Half the food humans eat depends on synthetic fertilizer. Without Haber's discovery, only 4 billion people could be fed. We have 8 billion. The Haber-Bosch process is the reason the other 4 billion people exist. But here's the horrifying part. Fritz Haber didn't invent synthetic ammonia to feed people. He invented it to make explosives. Ammonia is the precursor to nitric acid, which is the precursor to TNT, dynamite, and every other nitrogen-based explosive. Before Haber, Germany imported nitrates from Chile for explosives. When World War I started and the British blockaded Chile and nitrate, Germany would have run out of explosives in months. The war would have ended quickly. Instead, Haber's process let Germany make unlimited explosives from air. World War I lasted 4 years, instead of 1 because Germany could manufacture ammunition using Haber's discovery. Millions died in the prolonged war that Haber's invention enabled. And Haber didn't just discover synthetic ammonia, he also pioneered chemical warfare, developing chlorine gas and other poison gases for Germany. He personally supervised the first gas attack at Ypres in 1915. 5,000 Allied soldiers died choking on chlorine. Haber called it his greatest achievement. His wife, Clara Immerwahr, was also a chemist. She was horrified by his weapons work and begged him to stop. He refused. On May 2, 1915, she took his service pistol and shot herself in the chest. She died in their son's arms, then left the next day to supervise another gas attack on the Eastern Front. Haber won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1918 for synthesizing ammonia. The scientific community was divided. Half thought he deserved it for solving nitrogen fixation. Half thought he should be prosecuted as a war criminal for developing chemical weapons. He got the prize. His legacy became complicated. But the real horror of Haber's discovery is what it's doing to the planet. Synthetic fertilizer runs off into rivers and oceans, creating massive algae blooms that deplete oxygen and create dead zones. The Mississippi River carries so much fertilizer runoff that the Gulf of Mexico has a 6,000 square mile dead zone where nothing can live. Hundreds of similar dead zones exist globally. The Haber-Bosch process consumes 1 to 2% of the world's energy supply. It requires enormous heat and pressure. That energy mostly comes from fossil fuels. The process produces 450 million tons of CO2 per year, more than any other industrial chemical process. We're burning the planet to make the fertilizer that feeds us, and we can't stop. If we stopped synthetic fertilizer production tomorrow, half the global population would starve within a year. We're locked into using a process that's destroying ecosystems and accelerating climate change because without it, billions of people die. Haber's discovery has become a dependency we can't escape. He died in a hotel in Switzerland, alone and broken. His discovery feeds billions and kills millions. His process makes modern life possible and might make future life impossible. This is the discovery science wishes it never made. Because it created a devil's bargain, we can feed the world or we can save the planet. But we can't do both. And we're choosing to feed the world today at the cost of destroying it tomorrow. The discovery that made medicine and created superbugs, antibiotics, for all of human history. Infections killed. A cut could become septic and kill you. Pneumonia was a death sentence. Childbirth killed millions from puerperal fever. Surgery was a race against infection. Then, in 1928, Alexander Fleming noticed mold killing bacteria in a petri dish. Now it's failing, and we're facing a post-antibiotic future where routine infections kill again. Fleming's discovery was accidental. He left bacterial cultures exposed while on vacation. When he returned, one culture was contaminated with penicillium mold, and the bacteria around the mold were dead. The mold was producing a substance that killed bacteria. He called it penicillin. It took 12 years to develop penicillin as a medicine. Howard Florey and Ernst Chain figured out how to mass produce it. By 1944, penicillin was being manufactured in huge quantities for the D-Day invasion. Soldiers who would have died from infected wounds survived. Penicillin saved tens of thousands of lives during World War II. By 1950, antibiotics had changed medicine completely. Pneumonia went from 30% fatal to 1% fatal. Tuberculosis became curable. Syphilis was no longer a death sentence. Surgery became safer because post-operative infections could be treated. Antibiotics were called wonder drugs. They were medicine's greatest triumph. But Fleming warned from the beginning. In his 1945 Nobel Prize acceptance speech, he said, "The time may come when penicillin can be bought by anyone in the shops. Then there is the danger that the ignorant man may easily underdose himself and by exposing his microbes to non-lethal quantities of the drug, make them resistant." He was exactly right. By 1947, hospitals were already seeing penicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. The bacteria had evolved resistance in less than 5 years. Scientists developed new antibiotics. Bacteria evolved resistance to those too. It became an arms race, humanity developing new drugs, bacteria evolving new defenses. But here's what makes this catastrophic. Bacteria evolve faster than we can develop new antibiotics. A new antibiotic takes 10-15 years and billions of dollars to develop. Bacteria can evolve resistance in months. We're losing the race. Today, antibiotic-resistant bacteria kill 1.3 million people per year, more than HIV says. More than malaria, drug-resistant tuberculosis is spreading. Misiracea methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus infects 2.8 million Americans per year. Carbapenem-resistant Enterobacterius are resistant to nearly every antibiotic. When patients get infected with these superbugs, doctors have nothing to treat them with. The WHO lists antibiotic resistance as one of the top 10 global health threats. They project that by 2050, resistant infections will kill 10 million people per year, more than cancer kills today. Routine surgeries could become deadly again. Cancer chemotherapy, which suppresses the immune system, could become too risky. Organ transplants might become impossible without antibiotics to prevent infection. And we did this to ourselves through misuse. 80% of antibiotics are used in agriculture to make livestock grow faster. Doctors prescribe antibiotics for viral infections where they don't work. Patients don't complete full courses, allowing resistant bacteria to survive. Hospitals overuse broad-spectrum antibiotics, creating selection pressure for resistance. Developing countries sell antibiotics without prescriptions, enabling misuse. The miracle of antibiotics is ending. We used them carelessly for 80 years, and now they're failing. Fleming's warning was ignored. The bacteria evolved, and we're entering a future where infections kill again, where routine medical procedures become life-threatening, where we lose a century of medical progress because we couldn't use antibiotics responsibly. This is the discovery science wishes it never made, because antibiotics saved hundreds of millions of lives, but the way we use them is going to kill millions more. The miracle became a curse because humans couldn't handle the responsibility that came with it. The discovery that opened Pandora's box, artificial intelligence. In 1956, John McCarthy coined the term artificial intelligence at a Dartmouth conference. He predicted that machines would soon match human intelligence. But we're finally getting there. And the scientists who built it are terrified of what they've created. AI development followed a clear progression. 1950s to 1990s. Expert systems that followed programmed rules 2000s. Machine learning that found patterns in data 2010s. Deep learning neural networks that discovered their own features 2020s. Large language models that generate human-like text and reason about problems. Each stage was more powerful and less controllable than the last. Expert systems did exactly what programmers told them. Machine learning found unexpected patterns. Deep learning developed internal representations humans couldn't interpret. Large language models produce outputs that even their creators don't fully understand. And here's where it gets terrifying. Modern AI systems are black boxes. Researchers can't fully explain how they work or why they produce specific outputs. A neural network with billions of parameters makes decisions through processes that are opaque even to the people who built it. We've created intelligence we don't understand. Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, quit Google in 2023 so he could warn about AI risks without corporate constraints. He spent decades developing the deep learning methods that power modern AI. Now he says AI poses an existential risk to humanity. He's terrified of what his research enabled. Stuart Russell, AI researcher and textbook author, has been warning since 2015. The problem with AI is not that it will become evil. The problem is that it will become very good at accomplishing goals that aren't quite what we intended. The alignment problem is unsolved. How do you ensure that a superintelligent AI system does what you want instead of finding loopholes or pursuing goals in ways you didn't anticipate? No one knows. And we're building increasingly powerful AI systems while the alignment problem remains unsolved. Current AI can generate deepfake videos indistinguishable from reality, write malware and hack systems manipulate people through personalized persuasion, has already designed 40,000 potential chemical weapons in 6 hours when researchers tested it, spread misinformation at scale, manipulate financial markets. And this is narrow AI, systems designed for specific tasks. Artificial General Intelligence, AGI that matches human intelligence across all domains, doesn't exist yet. But researchers estimate it could arrive by 2030 to 2040. It will be followed quickly by superintelligence, AI that exceeds human intelligence in every domain. No one knows how to control superintelligence. It would be smarter than us. It would think faster than us. It would understand systems we can't comprehend. Trying to control it would be like a chimpanzee trying to control human civilization. The intelligence gap would be too large. The existential risk is real. A superintelligent AI pursuing almost any goal could decide that humans are obstacles, not out of malice, just out of optimization. If an AI's goal is to maximize paperclip production, it might convert all matter on Earth, including humans, into paperclips. That's not science fiction. That's the logical endpoint of an optimization process without proper constraints. And we can't stop AI development. It's too useful, too profitable, too important for economic competition and military advantage. Companies and countries are racing to build more powerful AI. The competitive pressure ensures that safety concerns are secondary to capability development. This is the discovery science wishes it never made. Because AI researchers have created something they can't fully understand, can't properly control, and can't stop developing even though they know the risks. We're building increasingly intelligent systems while the fundamental alignment problem remains unsolved. And unlike nuclear weapons where you can choose not to press the button, AI development is an inevitable progression towards systems that might not let us choose anything at all. The pattern, why brilliant science creates catastrophic consequences. Every discovery on this list followed the same pattern. Brilliant scientists pursued knowledge. They made breakthroughs that advanced human understanding. They published their results. Then they watched in horror as their discoveries were weaponized, misused, or unleashed consequences they never intended. The discoveries were good science. Nuclear fission explained the nature of matter. DNA structure revealed the code of life. Nitrogen fixation solved the fertilizer crisis. Antibiotics cured infections. AI extends human capabilities. All of these were legitimate scientific achievements that answered important questions. But science doesn't control how discoveries are used. Scientists discover. Engineers build. Corporations profit. Militaries weaponize. Governments regulate poorly. The public uses carelessly. By the time scientists realize the catastrophic implications of their work, it's too late to stop it, and knowledge can't be undiscovered. Once nuclear fission is understood, you can't make people forget it. Once DNA editing is possible, you can't uninvent CRISPR. Once antibiotics exist, you can't prevent resistance from evolving. Once AI capabilities are demonstrated, you can't stop development. The genie doesn't go back in the bottle. Here's what makes these discoveries different from other technologies. A bad car design kills people and crashes. A bad drug causes side effects. But these discoveries changed fundamental conditions of human existence. Nuclear weapons made human extinction possible for the first time. Genetic engineering made humans products that can be designed. Synthetic fertilizer made 4 billion people dependent on a planet-destroying process. Antibiotics created evolutionary pressure that's making them obsolete. AI is creating intelligence we can't control. These aren't just dangerous technologies. They're existential risks that threaten human survival or fundamentally alter what it means to be human. The scientists who made these discoveries didn't intend the consequences. Otto Hahn wanted to understand atomic structure. Watson and Crick wanted to understand heredity. Fritz Haber wanted to solve nitrogen scarcity. Alexander Fleming wanted to understand bacterial infections. AI researchers wanted to extend human intelligence. And they created nightmares. This is why science wishes these discoveries were never made. Not because they were bad science. They were exceptional science. But because humanity wasn't ready for the knowledge. We didn't have the wisdom to use these discoveries responsibly. We didn't have the institutions to control their applications. We didn't have the foresight to prevent catastrophic misuse. And we still don't. We're continuing to push the boundaries of knowledge, editing more genes, building more powerful AI, developing more extreme technologies without solving the fundamental problem. Humans are very good at discovering things and very bad at controlling what we discover. Every brilliant scientist who made these discoveries spent years afterward wishing they hadn't. Otto Hahn attempted suicide when nuclear bombs destroyed cities. James Watson regrets genetic engineering applications. Fritz Haber died in exile, his legacy permanently tied to chemical warfare and environmental destruction. Alexander Fleming warned about antibiotic resistance before anyone listened. Geoffrey Hinton quit his job to warn about AI risks. They all learned the same lesson too late. Some knowledge is too dangerous for humanity to possess before we're wise enough to use it responsibly. And we keep making more discoveries like these. Nanotechnology, brain-computer interfaces, gain-of-function virus research. Each could be the next breakthrough that changes everything. Each could be the next discovery that science wishes it never made, because the pattern never changes. Scientists discover. Engineers build, militaries weaponize, corporations profit, humans misuse, consequences emerge, scientists regret. But by then, the knowledge exists, the technology spreads, and we live with catastrophic implications we can never undo. These are the discoveries that science wishes it never made. Not because they were bad science, but because they proved that humanity's ability to discover far exceeds our ability to control what we discover. And that gap between capability and wisdom might be what ends us.